Hey, this is Jared and you're watching Backroad Exploration. After 18 months of ownership and over 30,000 miles driven, today I want to break down the 10 things that I absolutely love about the Lexus GX460. Now, before I sing its praises too much, I do think it's important to point out this vehicle is far from perfect, which is why I made this video about the things that I hate. Now, for some context, the GX460 is a Toyota Land Cruiser Prado that's sold in other countries with a Lexus interior and body kit. It also shares very similar components in the frame and chassis as the Toyota 4Runner that's sold in the United States, just beefed up a little bit to handle the V8 that is under the hood, which is a huge positive of the GX because it means there's a lot of compatibility between 4Runner products and the GX, which is one of the things that I really like about it, and I'll get into that in more detail. Now, the GX was produced from 2010 model years through 2023 and was recently replaced with the GX550. If you've seen the GX550, it's absolutely stunning. I'm really impressed with that as a vehicle, but let's get started. The first thing that I love about the GX460 is that it is very comfortable. Now, it's not your grandma's Cadillac, but for a midsize SUV, it's really nice. Overall, it handles really well both on and off-road, which is important for me in my use case because a lot of my adventures are in southern Utah, which means we're driving for several hours on the pavement, on freeway and highway before we're spending a weekend out exploring in the desert or in the mountains. And so I want to be able to have a nice, comfortable driving experience on the pavement and an excellent driving experience off-road to limit driver fatigue so that when we're out on our adventures, I have all of the energy that I want and I'm not being worn down by the driving experience. Now, regardless of what package you get it in, it's going to come with heated and cooled leather seats, which is so awesome. In Utah, in the winter, it's very cold, so being able to start the GX, warm up those seats, and control the overall feel of the driver with just a heated seat is really nice. And then, of course, in the summers, when we're out in the desert and it's over 100 degrees, being able to turn on that cooled seat and have nice, cool air blowing on your back is so nice to just keep you comfortable, and it just makes everything about being out on the trail just that little bit extra, which is really cool. So whether you're commuting, off-roading, or road tripping all the way to the Pacific Northwest, it's going to be a really comfortable drive. We took a trip last year with the family up to see family in the Seattle area, and after 15 hours of driving, I had no driver's fatigue. It was just an absolute pleasurable experience. And in its stock form, it's even better, but who wants to leave a GX stock? The second thing that I love about the GX460 is that it has a V8 and it is paired with a 6-speed transmission. Now, while it's a pretty anemic V8, putting out only 301 horsepower, it is still a V8. Now, you want to keep in mind, this is not the 5.7 liter that is in the Tundra or the Sequoia, nor is the GX weighted to handle as much towing capacity as those vehicles. So if you're planning on pulling a big toy hauler or horse trailer or something like that, or a large boat, you probably don't want to pick up the GX. But if you're looking to do a small boat, maybe an off-road trailer, pulling a side-by-side around, something like that, you're going to be impressed with what the GX can do. I've been able to pull multiple things with it: a boat, a side-by-side, a trailer full of off-road other vehicles, dirt bikes, ATVs, and I've absolutely loved pulling with the GX, and that's because of that transmission and motor combination. Now, it's also really nice when you've got all of your gear, you're packed to the gills in the GX, and you have plenty of power to be going 80 miles an hour passing people uphill on I-70. While your buddies in their Toyota 4Runners are hunting for gears, you're going to be cruising knowing that you made the right purchasing decision. The third thing that I love about the 460 is that it has a lot of aftermarket support and compatibility. I came from having a Jeep Wrangler, which arguably has the most aftermarket support that there is out there, so it gives you lots of options. The good thing about the GX460, because it's so similar to the Toyota 4Runner, you have a ton of aftermarket support and options so that you can build out the vehicle to fit your preferences and use case. There are a ton of companies out there that are going to offer lifts, skid plates, roof racks, bumpers, sliders, anything that you want to do to your GX, there's going to be options out there. Coming from the Jeep with having so much support, I was a little bit worried that I was going to feel too limited or not be able to do some of the things that I want. Admittedly, while the market isn't as big for the 460, it still is really solid, and you have tons of options, and options are good. It helps things be more affordable, and it makes it so that you can find something that really suits your use case and your personal style and preferences, which is really fun when you're going and building a vehicle and spending a ton of money on it. One of the other things that's really nice is because this vehicle is the Land Cruiser Prado in other countries and has a ton of similar components to the Toyota 4Runner, even if you want to get OEM parts, they're less expensive than other vehicles that have a more limited OEM scope. Now, that doesn't mean they're cheap, because OEM is always expensive, but it's good to know that anywhere you are, basically in North America, you're going to be able to get parts from the OE to replace things if needed. The fourth thing that I love is that it has a swing gate. Now, I know that the swing gate can be a little bit of a controversial subject, and don't get me wrong, if all you're planning on doing is running around and using this as a commuter or your soccer mom car, honestly, having a swing gate is kind of a pain in the butt. But if you're planning on doing off-roading, there are some cool benefits to having this. Plus, man, look at how massive this opening is. It makes loading things in really, really nice. But if you're just going to do some grocery pickup, man, it's a pain. I can tell you, they can never figure out how to open it because they're so used to having a hatch that pops up, and there are some advantages of those things. But why do I love having a swing gate? Look at this massive canvas that the back of this has. It is absolutely huge, and while I'm not doing anything with it yet, I'm planning on putting a fold down table so that I can cook directly from it. I'm also planning on putting in molly panels so that I can put more gear on the back of it. This is a huge blank canvas, which is really cool. Plus, when it gets windy, I love that you can do this. I can twist that little bar, it locks it in place, and now it doesn't matter what's going on, this thing is not going to close on me. Another thing that is really cool is because this is a Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, like I've mentioned several times, the Prado actually has the spare tire on the rear of the vehicle on the swing gate. So I love having my ladder back there. I can mount my Trasharoo to it, which is really handy. It's a nice place to put that. And if I had a tailgate and a hatch, it eliminates the ability to be able to do that. But because I have a swing gate, I'm able to do that. And potentially, depending on what tire size you're running and the weight of that tire, you can actually mount a tire to the rear of the vehicle, which means I can take my stock spare out from underneath the vehicle, which doesn't work with my upgraded lifted tires anyways, and replace it with a aftermarket tire of the same size, which is something that I want to do in the future. So right now it's a lot of untapped potential, but I'm excited that there is all of that potential behind what's going on here. And last but not least, I'm a tall guy. If you have ever hit your head on an open hatch and the words that come out of your mouth afterwards that would leave you ashamed, man, you know why I hate hatches. They are the worst experience for me. Anytime I'm loading up any vehicle, I am hitting my head on that hatch. I love that this swing gate opens all the way up. It's completely out of the way. It can lock in place when I'm out on my adventures. It's just a really cool feature, and it's unique. It's really uncommon to have a swing gate on a vehicle now, which is a kind of a cool little unique thing about the GX. The fifth thing that I love about the GX460 is that it is very capable. Now, I'm not going to try to pretend like this GX460 with 33s is a better off-road vehicle than my Jeep JK was with 35s, but for what I want to do, the GX is more than capable. It also has the ability to add bumpers, skid plates, sliders, all of those things that are going to make it even more capable than it is in its current form. Now, it is important to point out it does not have great approach and departure angles, especially if you compare that to other vehicles, similar ones like the 4Runner. You're going to have more issues there. So depending on how willing you are to trim, depends on how big of tires you can fit and big of lift you can fit. There are guys out there putting lifts where you can fit 35-inch tires, and a GX with 35-inch tires is going to be insanely capable. Another really important thing for me that I liked about the GX is that it's all-wheel drive. We live in an area that gets a lot of snow. You're going from dry roads to slick roads and in between all of the time, and having a vehicle that is full-time all-wheel drive adds a lot of stability and comfort when you're actually driving in those conditions, which is a really cool thing. Even with my Jeep, if I was running into a really slick area, I would have to move it into four-wheel drive and then move it immediately out once I got back on dry pavement, which is kind of a pain. And sometimes you don't know if it's slick. Things like black ice and other things like that, you may not know just how slick it is. So I love that the GX is all-wheel drive all of the time and has the ability to be center locked, even giving you better control and traction when you need it when you're off-roading. Overall, for my use case, the GX is more than capable of what I want it to do, and especially if I make a few other mods like bumpers and some skid plates and sliders, it's going to be able to tackle any trail that I personally want to throw at it. Anything beyond what its capabilities are, I would probably want to be in a different vehicle anyways, and with Utah having so much to explore, I'm really not worried about running out of places that I want to be able to explore in the GX. It's very capable. I've had it in tons of different conditions and it's never let me down. Absolutely love it off-road. The sixth thing that I love about the GX is that it has a third row. Now, I know that I mocked the third row before, and for a guy who is 6'2", there's no way I would ever go anywhere in that rear seat. But for me, this was actually one of the key selling points of the GX460. There are very few mid-sized body-on-frame SUVs that actually have a third row. The 4Runner doesn't, the Wrangler doesn't, the Bronco doesn't. Again. I didn't want to move to a full-size vehicle like a Sequoia or a Suburban Tahoe type of a thing, and so I needed a third row. We had another kid, so we have 4 children, and I need to be able to have a seat for someone in that third row. It's perfect for someone who's under 10 years old, which I'm going to have for at least another 10 years, so not an issue at all, and an absolute #1 selling point for me in the GX. I know if you don't plan on using it, not a huge deal. You're probably just going to have those lay flat, which they do anyways, but it's nice that you have that option. And even for us, it's not uncommon where we're picking up a friend or a cousin and being able to have the ability to put them in with us and not have to have a second vehicle or something funky like that. Just makes it so it's a little bit better of a family vehicle, which is why we got it, and I consider myself a family man and off-roader, and so it was a key element in my decision to purchase the GX. The seventh thing that I love about the GX460 are the looks. It has aggressive hard lines. It's a boxy vehicle, which I like. Overall, I think they look good. Now, they can look exceptional when they are built. In stock form, I feel like they're a little bit soccer momish. They don't look as good to me, but when you put a lift on them, add some aftermarket and oversized wheels, you start adding things like a roof rack and kind of expedition it out. In my opinion, a built GX is a very, very cool looking vehicle. I don't love the front fascia. I've talked about that before. I don't hate it as much as other people do, but it isn't my favorite part of the GX. Overall, the lines though, I enjoy, and it's one of those things that it just kind of has a unique look. As soon as you start building them, they start looking unique. I wouldn't necessarily say that they have character, but it is cool and unique enough that it's something that I like driving. I like the way that it looks. Every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, that thing looks good, and it looks better after every little accessory that I add to it. The eighth thing that I love about the GX460 is that it is affordable. Now, I get affordability is a very relative term. This is not a low-priced vehicle, but if you're comparing the GX to other vehicles like a Bronco, a Jeep JL, a Toyota 4Runner of similar year mileage, you're going to be impressed for the value of money that you're going to be getting out of the GX. There's a couple really cool things about GXs. There's tons of them out there. It's like any vehicle, as soon as you start looking into them, you start noticing them more and more. Well, guess what? The GX has been purchased by a ton of people who have never, ever intended on taking it off-road. You can't say that always the same about a Toyota 4Runner, a Jeep JK or JL, or even the Bronco. A lot of times those are purchased with the intent of beating them up and using them, which is totally fine. But I love that you can go on the used market, you can look for GXs that you know have never left the pavement. They've always been garaged, they've been dealer maintained, they were often a leased vehicle that's then traded in at the end of a lease, and so people are trying to take care of them so that they're not getting beat up as they're getting rid of that lease. They are a great vehicle to get on the used market and be able to build into something that then you plan to use and abuse, which is awesome. They also have some features that those other vehicles don't. You've got a V8, like I've talked about multiple times. You have a nice solid transmission, which is going to make it so that you're not hunting for gears. So from a value for money perspective, I think you're getting a good value, which is why I can say they're affordable. The ninth thing that I love about the GX460 is that it is a reliable vehicle. Now, I put this at the end for a reason, because it's not one of the things that I am concerned about as much. And to be frank, I feel like reliability is overrated. People act like if their vehicle has any issues at all, that it was some type of a massive letdown. The reality is we're abusing these vehicles. They're going and doing really tough conditions. We're off-roading, we're pushing them. And so you're gonna have things that just happen, but you also don't want to have to spend all of your money doing repairs. The nice thing about the GX460 and its reliability is that's not something you have to like, oh, I'm going to take Jared's word for it. Just do some simple Google searches and you're going to find that it is rated exceptionally high for midsize SUVs from people that do long-term testing like Consumer Reports, Car and Driver, Edmunds, all over the place. The GX460 scores really well. They do, it's the Toyota model. Toyota, they build something, they refine it, they make it good, and then they stick with it for as long as they possibly can until they have to make a change because the consumer is demanding a change. There are downsides to that model. It means that often the vehicle isn't as feature rich as some of its competitors and things like that, but it does usually mean that because of really good engineering and a focus on long lifespans of components, it works really well. Now, this isn't a perfect vehicle. A common issue that the GX460s have is that they get a coolant leak in the reservoir pan valley. Basically, that gasket is just not well made and it will start leaking at some point in time, and it is not a cheap fix, a couple $1,000s to get that replaced by a professional. So I do want to point that out, but it is not uncommon that people are getting 250 to 350,000 miles out of the motor and the transmission, which in my opinion are kind of those marks that make it a reliable vehicle. The 10th thing that I love about the GX460 is that it has a really cool community. When I sold my Jeep, I was worried about losing that Jeep community. The Jeep community is big, it's super helpful, and I just love finding people who are passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. While I've always been more focused on adventure than the specific vehicle that I'm taking on my adventures, I do think that it's super helpful to have a community that you can rely on. People who have the same vehicle as you know things like upgrades that work well, upgrades that don't work well. They're willing to share their opinions and they want you to love your vehicle as much as they love theirs. And so it really builds that camaraderie, which I actually am just super happy with and impressed with. I was a little bit worried about the GX1 that maybe it wouldn't be as open and inclusive as other communities that I've been a part of. And honestly, it's been better in some ways because it's smaller. I think that it's just a little bit more intimate in some ways where people, they really want you to find the best build and upgrades that you possibly can to suit your needs. And so they're willing to share their experiences and just be really open. I've met so many incredible people who've helped the GX get to the phase that it's in now and are going to be a part of the future build process for my vehicle. So I love the community. Overall, that's a really important part of any hobby, in my opinion, is just the people that you meet and you get to be a part of. If you liked this video and you like GX460s or you just like off-roading and camping, I think you will like my channel. Head to my backlog, check out all of my adventures with my family as we're exploring some of the most remote areas in Utah. Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you could do me the favor of sharing this video or one of my adventure videos with one of your friends, that would be incredibly awesome of you. Thanks so much for watching.